Michael DiLeonardo, also known as Mikey Scars. The government says he's a high-ranking member of the Gambino crime family.
No Excuses with Michael DiLeonardo. I'm your host, RJ Roger. Michael, I got 4 espressos now. This is my 4th one. It's 11:30 at night.
Which how you can grow some hair. Jesus, things are going to start sprouting on you. Grow a beard, you're going to be like this by the time we finish the show. That's a lot of espresso. If I had that, I'd have a heart attack right now.
It doesn't keep me up, but it does wake me up. It's weird.
Yeah, all right, that's good.
Yeah. So
the benefit without the punishment.
Yeah.
I like those glasses.
Oh,
as we say in Brooklyn, you look sophisticated.
Oh, yeah. Someone said, I guess they don't feel that big to me, but every time I wear them, someone says, man, those are huge glasses.
So was you trying to say you look like Urkel?
I guess so. The big glasses came in style. I used to have small ones. Now I got big ones.
You know who Urkel was?
Of course. Grew up on it.
All right.
So sometimes I'll wear these ones. See, these ones are a little smaller.
Oh, yeah, I like them too. They're nice too.
Yeah. These ones are Ray-Ban. These are Armani Exchange.
Now I wear Garbacci instead of Versace.
No. I like these ones. All right, Michael.
That's what I told that defense attorney in court. He was talking about my alligator shoes I had on.
Oh. Remember that Frank Costello?
Not to my recollection, no.
And didn't James McLaughlin check your wires at your request?
Not to my recollection. I never give anybody a contract to check my wires.
His lawyer was telling him, you know, Frank, you're coming in, you have this nice fancy suits on, you got to dress down, look like an old man, look shabby, like don't look like what they are painting you as. And he looks at, it's a famous quote, I use it in my book. He says, I'd rather blow the whole trial, counselor, or something like that, he says to his lawyer. So that's what John Gotti said too when he was talking with Sammy. He said, you know, I'm not going to do what Tony Ducks did. Walk around with a sweater vest on looking like an old man.
Is Anthony Tony Ducks Corallo. The baggy-eyed man in the suit is Carmine Jr. Persico. And the camera-shy man in the handcuffs is Anthony Fat Tony Salerno. Ouch! They may look like grandfathers, but the FBI says they are godfathers.
Well, you seen the way I showed up in court. How many pictures of me going to Atlanta? How many suits I had? That's some outlandish colors going there.
Yeah.
You got to live that. You know, I lived the way I lived every day. I wasn't going to change. I wasn't going to dress down, wear a nice tweed sweater and horn-rimmed glasses. Nah.
Yeah.
I would have known I was a phony jury in 1 minute.
Do your lawyers say stuff to you ever about that? Like,
yeah.
Oh, that's what they do. Hey, Michael, you're dressing up too.
And not only the lawyer, how about the prosecutor?
Yeah.
You know, because they had said, you know, the opening statements and this, that, you know, they're painting you as being crazy and, you know, and not in touch, and you have breakdowns and all this other stuff. I guess because of suicide attempt, you know, and being a lot of people, you know. So she says, you know, maybe, you know, you just, you know, instead of wearing suits, I heard you got some suits because I had the suits brought in, right? I says, maybe just, you know, just wear a nice sweater. I says, you just told me to expecting a captain to walk in that courtroom. They're going to get a captain. And I opened up with something I was comfortable in. That was me. I wasn't going to run away from it.
If you look at our intro, anybody who thought, you can tell when you walking out. Remember when I made the video, you said, I love the ending. When I come out smiling, it's like, I knew I was going to win this thing. So
Yeah, that was the beginning of the trial because there was a girl there, Stacy Levy, attorney. She was one of the attorneys that I was vetting out at that time. And the guy with no jackets, Eric Franz, a really good lawyer, became a real good friend of mine at that time. And I didn't have Craig Gillen at the time as a lawyer. I didn't have an official attorney yet. That was going to go to trial, a trial attorney. So when I walked out, that's what it was. I was a little surprised because all the cameras are at the back of the courthouse. I asked the marshal, where's the press? He said, the back. I said, I'm going out the front. Which way's the front? He said, over there. And they were waiting outside for me. So they had the courtroom surrounded.
yeah.
That's how that video came.
Michael, the mafia has this like odd way that they bring people into the life. Jimmy Calandra, I remember he was talking about his Bath Ave crew. I'm gonna read you something. My name is Jimmy Calandra. I was once a member of the infamous Bath Ave Crew located in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, New York. My neighborhood is a recruitment center for the 5 crime families of New York City. These wise guys watch you as you're growing up and they look for kids they can mold into thieves, murderers, crooks, and in time they recruit us and teach us the ways of a wise guy. As you're coming up and committing crimes, these men put you on record with them and they teach you how to earn, and in return they introduce you to a circle of underworld figures that is the mafia. They teach you that we are responsible for each other's actions and that they are your brothers. And if they call you in the middle of the night, you come in with no questions asked. And in return, someday you too will be made a member of the family. And he goes on to talk about even if it means killing your best friends. And then he goes into it's all brainwashing. And in the end, you find out it's not all what that is cracked up to be. They manipulate you and it continues forward.
Well, yeah, his synopsis is pretty good. The end of it, I don't agree with for the most part. We make all our own decisions at the end. You don't become Stockholm syndrome, or they don't hypnotize you or give you drugs to make a zombie out of you. You're still an independent thinker. At that point, you're making cognitive decisions. But going back to what he first said, yeah, absolutely. Not only our neighborhood, the whole city and cities where you have a base of people. In Chicago, Cleveland, and we could go name, as you know, 30 cities going way back, right, from your book. Sure. You just don't call a hiring hall to say, I need a kid to go break a window. I need somebody to go get a beating. You're going to call the union and they say, this is the recruitment center for future wise guys, potential wise guys. No, your breeding grounds is the neighborhood you live in. And even for myself, when I got into a position, I heard about younger guys. And you see who the capable guys are. And the guys have a propensity for violence. And just to go back to myself, we started as kids. I told you about from the first grade, the kid with the white thing across his chest, he became a monitor. He can never be part of us in the street. And that's a kid. We always, my family always told you never call the cops. You never say nothing. You get a beating, you take it. You go out, you go get a bat, you give them a beating. Your revenge is in your hands. Or your friends or your brothers, your family, that they go out and seek revenge. You call nobody. I mean, cops, law enforcement. So this is what you're taught at that age. And again, you may say, well, that's like an indoctrination or brainwashing. No, it's not. It's a way of life. It's a way of life in a community that grew up real tight like other communities that protected their own. There was no calling the cops way back. Don't forget, different groups throughout time were ostracized by the groups that were there before them, English, Dutch, etc. The Germans and the Irish and the Jews and the Italians and everybody else that came through. They were all abused at one point. So those neighborhoods, those people stuck together. They were very clannish. And you handled your own business. especially in the slum areas, Lower Manhattan, etc. You know, these people are impoverished, and they fought for their own. So that doesn't mean everybody's a criminal, right? You just fought for your own, your own domicile, your job, or whatever else you were looking to do. Now, growing up, like I said, in the street, we didn't grow up in poverty. We're lower middle class, my family, right? But the whole neighborhood was either low middle class or middle class. There's Bensonhurst area, Bath Beach is specifically where I was. So, you know, growing up as a kid, you know, humans like to belong to something, a group. So when you were a kid, you know, we played a little sports, softball, wiffle ball, all these other sports that we played in the neighborhood that we only needed a couple of guys to play at times. But you galvanize a group going to school. And, you know, when a fight breaks out in the schoolyard between you and another kid, you usually got a couple other friends of yours, you swing it out, and then they get into it with those guys, and there's this rivalry. So you're making groups within groups in your neighborhood. And that's what I talked about in other shows about different corners of Bath Avenue would fight each other. They're from corner to corner, 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. You were doing the summertime, we were swinging it out. Just as almost like practice to be in a gang. And that's how these little groups of kids become gangs, little gangs. Now I was a young kid, elementary school. There was my friend Robert Blasco. And we would play sports together, stickball, softball. And we had the first group he called us the Playboys. We were kids. And then there was like a too soft a name. We called us the Spies. We were called the Spies, he named us. And we would have little fights in the neighborhood, in the school. And if one of us had a problem after school with somebody in the school, we'd go to the schoolyard and we'd swing it out. And there'd be a whole group of their group on one side, your group on the other side. And before you know, it was a riot. So now when you get these groups, the older guys in the neighborhood see this. The guys that, let's say, if I was 8 or 10, the guys that 13, 14, 15, because they're in the next levels in school, you wind up going from elementary school to junior high school, which was 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 9th grade. We went from elementary was from kindergarten to 6. Junior high was 7 to 9. And then after that, you went to high school. So you wind up in these, almost like a clan, because you really galvanize as kids. And you knew you fought one, you had to fight all after a while if it was a kid from another corner. So that's how you get your reputations. So now, like I said, we had this group from Bath Avenue, because that's where I really grew up, was on Bath Avenue. In my younger years, it was only 2 blocks from my house. And my mother worked on Bath Avenue. My grandfather in the 60s had a club on Bath Avenue. He had a club in there since the 20s on Bath Avenue in different locations, right by where Spiro later on had his club. So then the DeChicos had clubs, and Tato had a club there. Tato had the dress shop. There was a guy called Johnny Bad Beach that was a legend. And he named himself after the whole neighborhood, Bad Beach. That's how influential this guy was. So they see all you guys doing things. And that goes back to that story with Sammy. And it wasn't on Bath Avenue. He was like on 79th Street. He hung out down there. So you get these reps from different guys. Hey, you see these kids? They're good kids. And yeah. So, you know, if they needed someone to go break a window, they say, go break that guy's window. And they get the toughest kids in there. Who's the toughest kids in the neighborhood? They would know, because we're right there. And a lot of the kids were related to people they knew intimately. And some were related, just directly related. And they knew the potential these kids had. Did he run away from a fight? Did he stay and fight with his friends and get a beating? Yeah. And again, we started here as kids. Now I go to, let's say, 7th grade. We went to a school called PS 201 Dyker Heights. Now, when I get there in the 7th grade, I had my own guys at this time, my own group of guys that we were fighting in the street already. We were having little gang fights. Now we had the guys in the 8th grade and the 9th grade. those were two age groups older than us that already had their select groups of guys they hung out with. And they were tough. We had a lot of tough guys in junior high school, really tough. And these guys already had their reputation solid. And now you start joining with them. You start hanging out with older guys. And you see the way they're acting. Well, we would go to school. I'll give you an example. We shut down the school. We decided we want that protest. We shut down the whole school. They brought in a teacher. I was in the 7th grade, and my friend Kenny Mandil, he was, I think he was in 9th grade at that time. He was from 84th Street, between 17th and 16th Avenue. Now, Kenny, I knew my whole life as a kid because he used to hang out in 17th Avenue Park. And he was a tough bastard, along with a lot of other guys there. So now I get there, and then we're like in the same school. So we get to know each other a little bit better. Never mind, he's that older guy. And they brought in a teacher from another school. Of course, we were just wild. I'll tell you some stories about what we did in the school. And this guy was supposed to be, I think his name was Hall. And we're acting all crazy, coming up from the lunchroom. Kenny's already on the floor. And this guy, Hall, grabs him, this new teacher. And he tells Kenny, he's behaving. He says, see this ring? Kenny hit him a fucking shot, knocked him right out, right on the floor, bada boom. And everybody started kicking the teacher. Yeah. When we went in, like I said, 7th grade, we used to go with tools. You know, you had the water fountains in school, big sinks with the water fountains. We used to take the heads off, and all the water used to be like Yellowstone. We had a test, right? We all gather the night before. If we had tests, and we know who's going to take this test tomorrow. We bring a whole bunch of rocks. We go by school. Let's say it was 3rd floor, 4th floor. We throw as many rocks as we can, break every window in that classroom. So the next day there was no test. Yeah, and again, different groups in that school. You go to the schoolyard for lunch. You were fighting if they let you out in the yard to go play ball, because they used to have to let you out for lunch. Certain amount of airtime to be outside. There was fights all the time. After school fights, I'll fight you after school. And you get 30, 40 kids on each side in the schoolyard watching your guy and somebody else's guy swing it out. And if it didn't turn out right, that weekend it was gang fight. So going back, just remember all the older guys at the time, they're seeing this as kids, and they're seeing who the tough kids are in the neighborhood. Word gets around. Your propensity for violence and not running away and standing up for your friends, it got around. That's the loyalty that they look for. And the loyalty, as I got older, that I look for. It's just a cycle, secular. So, you know, my brother gets married, my brother Robert, my brother Jimmy, they ran away and got married very young. And my brother Robert's wife came from 13th Avenue. She was half Irish, half Italian. And they hated my brother because he was Italian, even though her father was Italian. And when they eloped and got married, they threw a whole lot of clothes in the hallway. And says, we don't have a daughter no more. My father says, you don't have a daughter no more? I have a daughter. I have 3 sons. Now I have a daughter, right? So she became very close to my family because they ostracized her at this point. But she had brothers. And in the course of going to this middle school, I got really close with one of her brothers. His name was Franny. And now I jumped up and I started hanging out on 11th and 12th Avenue a little bit. Still my friends on Bath Ave, still playing ball with everybody. Now by this time, I'm playing a lot of ball. I got a pretty good reputation as a good ball player. But I had a different set of friends. Those are my ball player friends, sport friends. And then I had my hanging out in the schoolyard, hoodlum friends of mine, like that song, right? So he had a group, a gang called Maltese Falcons. And the Maltese Falcons, they hung out in a section called Dyker Heights, where all the money was, where Persico lived, a lot of the heavyweight mobsters lived, the guys with the money. And we would hang out up there. We would break into these little sheds in the back of these big homes. We hang out there. Guys would smoke pot, get high. We go down the block. We go rob some cars, tires, and hubcaps, trunk cars at this age, and we hang out. So I get into another gang. After that one breaks up, I go to back to my neighborhood, 84th Street, 17th Avenue, and this group gets really big, and we got like 50, 60 guys in this gang, and we would hang out on different places, different schoolyards, because the cops would chase us all the time, usually schoolyards, and we would wait because we had no money, and we would wait like on a corner, and if a truck pulled up that had telephones, at the time it was a pickup. You pick up the telephone. It wasn't a cell phone, They're wired phones, and they had these princess phones. I remember when they first came out, they were round, and they had push buttons on instead of the dial, rotary dial. And we wait for the guy at the telephone company. As soon as we see him pull up somewhere, they never lock their trucks. We put a guy over there waiting for him to come down. There's a lookout. We go there and we rob the whole truck. Yeah. And we sell the phones for like $1. Then we go shopping. This is how we went shopping. And the girls would come with us too. It was around Christmas. We'd go down to Mays or Macy's, downtown Brooklyn, get in the cabs, run out of the cab, beat the guy, right? Just run out, bum the fare, go inside, and we all go in there and we shoplift. The girls with us, shoplifting. They would go shoplifting in our clothes, even if we weren't around, the girls. Brings back all kinds of clothes. Like, you come home with new clothes, but your motherfucker go, where'd you get that? My father said, leave him alone. What's the difference where he got it? Well, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get arrested. Meanwhile, my two brothers are already doing burglaries, major burglaries at the time. So these are things that like common. They're easy. We would go to the store. I think I told the story about we go to the supermarket. We go in there with baggy shirt out of the pants, and we put meat, steaks inside our pants. And we walk out. And if the guy came, we all ran out together. And we go sell the meat, 50 cents, $1, $1.50. And we were always robbing as kids.
Do you think your father saw what you were doing at a young age, you and your brothers, and just knew you guys are getting ready for the inevitable? This is what, or is it like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, this is just what they're supposed to do, kind of, almost.
Well, yeah, crime to my father was no big deal. Again, he grew up around it. He grew up his father, who his father was, his godfather, who his godfather was. He hung out with mob. He was driving Paulie Zach's father at 14 years old. He didn't even have a license. They got into a major accident. With no license. Paulie's father almost died. My father broke his wrist, his arm, got thrown out of the car. One of those old big steel cars years ago. So no, that was part of it. It was part of the culture.
So he would never tell you, stop, you're getting yourself in trouble. You got to stop doing this. You're going to end up in jail one day.
Don't put tattoos on because of you. He used to tell my brothers, again, my brothers are 9 and 10 years older than me. And then this was the 60s. They were getting high. They were taking pills, drinking codeine. The whole neighborhood, as that group of guys. I put a picture up the other day. You and I put a picture up. Tilio, Artie Gort, Mikey Michio, Joe Benefanti went on the right track. Of all those guys on steroids, that was my brother's age group. Jimmy Ida, Joey Mann, Sammy Gravano, Papa, Emma, Jackie Herman. I could keep naming guys all over the place there in that neighborhood. That whole generation just about was destroyed. Not too many people came out of that generation, which would be in the late 70s right now. A lot of those guys died. They got killed in the street. But they were all criminals. And they were always fighting. There was always gang fights. Always fought each other. So when you hear about my brothers coming home stabbed, broken arms, and all of that from having fights, and all your friends having fights, it's nothing. You don't think of it as anything. You don't get worried. We had the fight with the guys from Bay 23rd. They came to a schoolyard. We had arrows. We had flaming arrows like cowboys and Indians, throwing bottles of gas bombs, Molotov cocktails. They came to the park one day. We were short. They broke our ass. The guys from Bay 11. Those kids were tough kids. I caught a break because they liked me. Yeah, I only got thrown to 4 and they got held down. All my friends got beaten. They caught us short.
But like, so let me. I don't want to fast forward too much, but since we're on the topic of your father and crime, so like when you were got your first big bust in Atlanta and all that stuff, did you? As a natural, I'm trying to think as a parent would think if my child was ever, imagine your son, how you feel about your sons. Imagine one of your sons arrested on federal charges, like how you're going to feel, how you're going to think. Like, what was your conversation like with your father at that point when you're on trial in Atlanta? Like, what's he saying to you?
Good luck.
Oh my God, come on. Like,
serious. Don't forget, my brother Jimmy did 2 bids before that too. You go to jail, you go to jail. It's a bitch on at times. You got to be kidding me. This is what it was. You got pinched, you went to prison. Look,
but it wasn't like so. And your father's not laying up at night, can't sleep, worried about his son going to jail.
No, where's the score? Where's the score? I told you that my brother brought his friend home, got shot in the back on a score. My father had called the doctor, Dr. Ariola, brought him to the office on Bay Parkway, and they had dug the bullet out. Dr. Ariola dug the bullet. I saved this guy's life. So these are the things. I was a little kid. I know you're watching this, you see it. You hear it. There's again, it may sound odd to a guy like you because it wasn't part of the way you grew up. Like I said, we couldn't wait to fight as kids. You couldn't wait to go have a fight. It was a gang fight. I mean, 30, 40 guys on each side.
Did you consider like you and your father to be, because as a father, you can relate to a close relationship with your sons. Do you feel like you and your father were close?
Yeah. I was his favorite because my brothers, with the getting high and acting really, really wild, was put a big burden. That's a whole story. I'll speak about my mother one day, what they did between my father and my 2 brothers, wrecked my mother. She was a legitimate person. Her father was a barber. Her mother was she was a furrier. She made furs. She worked for somebody. And these were legitimate people. She made some mistake. Marrying my father, that's for sure. Ruined her at a young age. And this is what I'm talking about for the 60s. I don't want to get into that right now, but we will.
That's one of the things every time you say that, I can relate to that with my mother and father, because my mom was like a princess of East Orange. I'm talking like she comes from like a family with money, more middle upper class family. My mom was beloved, her mom treated her like royalty. And meeting my father, now I love both my parents dearly, but my father was a hard knock street guy and lived a hard knock life. And meeting my mom legitimately took my mom to a whole new life, whole new pathway. That's why, like, even as a father myself, I'm so on my daughter a lot, because I know how you can meet one person that changed your whole dynamic in life, take you to a whole new place. And my mom's life was wrecked because of meeting my father. I don't blame my father. Like you said, we're all our own people. You make your own decisions in life. But I know what you mean when you say that. It's hard to look at somebody that could have had a different life, an entirely different life. My dad's life is what it should have been.
Yeah.
No matter what. I can look at my dad's life and say, it's what it should have been. You might feel about your father's life, it's what it should have been. But you probably feel like with your mom, her life didn't have to be that way.
Oh, you're not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without a doubt. That's true. So, she grew up with a lot of pressure with them. And then later on, I came along. I wasn't as bad as them, as far as getting in trouble. Because again, the drugs were a big part, taking pills. They didn't shoot junk or anything like that, but still, you get high, you know. And I would be in the car as a little kid. My brother bought a 1966 convertible Cadillac, right? And I remember being on the highway. He was going to cop codeine down in Low Brooklyn, South Brooklyn. And he'd be in the car doing 100 miles an hour, and I'd be in the back seat. He'd be doing 100 miles an hour on the highway to get down there. You have a gun under the seat, you know, drinking the fucking codeine and flying back to the neighborhood. My brothers were out of control, just like a lot of guys in the neighborhood, out of control. I mean, there was the house next door. My grandfather had his house, and my house was directly next door. There was no fence in between. My other neighbor on the right, our fence was maybe 3 feet high, and we had all kinds of stuff, and you know, plantings and animals, chickens, ducks. I had everything in my yard, and these people were really nice people next door. Matter of fact, one of the guys, Nick, he took me to play baseball for the first time when I was 16. I never held a baseball, never played in the baseball league. I held baseball, but never played in the league. I should say I played everything in the streets, organized baseball. So, you know, I was a little younger at the time, and I remember they had a barbecue in the backyard. And my brothers were acting out of order, yelling, cursing in the house and screaming. And one of the guys that came from Long Island, I think he was a fireman, there was a relative of theirs, said something like, "Shut up." By the time they finished with that family, they were so close. We were so close to them. They beat them up, put them in the hospital, blood all over the place. And now I play with their kids. We're the same age. And they just wrecked them. And my father couldn't even stop them at one point. They're like mad dogs, beating them up. Women, kids, everybody screaming. It was like, what happened? You know what I mean? And you go inside, and then for years they don't look at you. You know, the whole neighborhood said, these kids are animals. You're my brothers, you know. There's always something going on. So when you grow up like that, it's almost like natural, you know, in a strange way. Now that I know was really egregious because they didn't deserve the beating they got. An argument, maybe, you know, but it was out of order. And then later on, like I said, they didn't hold me accountable, and the guy wanted to take me to play baseball the first time at St. Bernadette's. So, but these are the things you see as a kid, and it's normalized. Like I told the story once that there was a kid a couple of years older than me, and he would, you know, I would get a beating from him on the regular, throw me around the neighborhood, you know, throw me all over. And one day he threw a rock over my head. I went in the house screaming and crying, blood all over. And my father says, "Robert, I'm sick of this kid crying. Take him down to baseball, get a baseball bat, go crack this kid's head. Ring his bell, get him out. You crack his head, don't come back here unless you hit him." I walked out the back, I'm standing outside the house. My brother rings the bell. I'm standing there. "What do you want?" Boom. My brother wants to fight. Big eye cops are all over. It was a, you know, my brother pulls up. I could just go story after story. My brother pulls up with that Cadillac, had a toy gun. Then the toy guns were made out of metal. And I had seen a show, and I wrapped it up with black electrical tape. And they thought he was going to do a stick up. They knew they were burglars, my brothers. So they stopped him. They had to pull me out of the house and say, "What's that?" "Oh, that's my gun. There it is." And they let him go. RJ, and there's a couple of guys. I told you maybe you had time to look at those emails that we get. Mm-hmm. There's a guy from the neighborhood. He's probably 2 years younger than me, but he remembers all the kids, and he's reminiscing through emails, and he's naming all the guys that he brought back memories from when I was a kid, all the kids we hung out, and all the acts we used to do, the acts of vandalism. We were major vandals. We vandalized for fun. He talked about when we blew out, there was a part of the schoolyard we hung out in 204. Right after 4th of July, we collected all this gunpowder from all the M80s, cherry bombs, ash cans. put it all together. We made a bomb. Put it all. We didn't know how big the bomb was. We blew up this little, it was like a little bunkhouse, they call it. The bricks came right down. We blew up the whole side of it. We burned down the park house. Just major, we vandalized things just to vandalize. They sent us to summer school. 7th grade. Had to go to summer school. They sent Persian for summer school. Persian. We broke into the school. We would break into the school 204 and 229. Those are the two schools we really hung out in our neighborhood. We would break in at night, go in, go to the cafeteria, eat all the food. But try to get us there during the day to go to class. I might be the only one of all my friends that graduated high school.
And where the concept from my book came from, the 36 Rules, was in studying about 100 years, a little more, 120 years of mob bosses, just the bosses. Their high connects to their low and to their end, meaning the boss, a guy who rose to boss, he was a motherfucker since he was a kid. He was a tough guy since he was a kid. He was running little rackets when he was 8, 10. When he was in kindergarten, he was taking everybody's lunch money. Everybody was scared. Then when he was 12, like John Gotti has the famous cement mixer story when he's a teenager. He messed up his foot. He was as a badass his whole life. You can look in his early years and see he just became he was on that road since he was small. And the ending is usually gangster's end, and it matches the life you have living. And I kind of found that in everybody I looked at that made it to like the boss. Is a gangster born or made? Is it just something that was just in you, or do you think it was something that someone put in, that you were like, environment, people, things like that?
Yeah, look, a lot has to do with intestinal fortitude, I believe. Everybody has a certain metal. I give this analogy often. I told my son Anthony, firemen are built to run into the fire. Other people run away from the fire. Soldiers run to the sound of gunfire. Others run away from the sound of gunfire. You're born with that metal. Whatever road you take, that's going to carry you. So is that a man? Absolutely. Doesn't mean you're not a man if you run away from gunfire. Just you're not made for that. There's certain people becomes hero. What's a hero? Hero is someone who puts their own life up really without thinking to do something heroic, save somebody's life, save something, that does a deed of valor. Other people just don't have it in them. It's what you built. So now if you grow up in an environment that's tough and you're fighting to survive, let's say in these bad neighborhoods, right, throughout time, you may, if they grew up in a good neighborhood and their parents had some money, hey, they may have been a colonel in the army by the time they finished. So it's some has to do with your environment and some has to do with your metal, but you got to be born with that. A lot of times leadership, yes, can be learned. You can read about leadership, but a true leader, it's in his eyes. You could see a true leader in the eyes. You could see who's faking it at times. If you look, you can see fear in somebody's eyes. They hear that, right? That's often said. But you can see the devil in somebody's eyes too, even when they're not mad.
Yeah.
So as kids growing up, you grew up in these neighborhoods. Your reputation spreads from, like I said, on the corner, from one schoolyard as you're getting older to this schoolyard, that schoolyard, and all these older guys hear about these kids. Don't forget, we had 5 families in New York and 1 in New Jersey. Were they recruitment grounds? Absolutely. But most of the guys, they weren't hypnotized to walk into a club and say, here I am, what do you want me to do? No, it's something you want. It's something you strove to do. No, look, when he told me to go punch this guy in the face, I've been getting punched in the face and punching people in the face since I'm a kid. It's nothing. It's like, oh, go hit that guy. Go hit the guy. You know what I mean? You want to go hit that guy with a bat? All right. We got gang fights our whole lives, getting hit with bats, but guys chasing you, you hitting guys with bats. You know, it's just part of what you do.
Does that guy? So you said, is this the? You said when I read the part, it is all brainwashing, and in the end, you find out it's not all cracked up. It's not all it's cracked up to be. What they tell you, they manipulate.
It's not that. It's that. That's see what they tell you. Nobody comes in and tells you. You grow it up. You live it. I had friends of mine without the mob. Like I said, kid Jimmy Dibley, I never forget him. Very close friend of mine. Ours. He's a tough kid. He wound up in the hippie days, right? He had the longest hair. He Grand Funk. He liked all that. He looked like a hippie. You fuck with him. He was tough. He wanted to get in drugs. And there was suspicion that one of the kids we hung out with lured him somewhere and shot him, killed him. I was sick for his mother, his father. His mother was devastated. She was done. So other guys dying of OD, the ODing right in front of you, shooting junk, calling ambulances, guys dying on you. Now it's and you've seen this, and you grew up in these neighborhoods. So you become not callous to it, but it becomes like, okay, it happened. There's so many guys that I've seen, friends of mine, kids, die through violence or drugs. You know, we're playing ball one day. One kid, John Abada, he lived right next door to where Sammy's mother and father had the dress shop. They owned the grocery store. His brother, it was older kid, was an athlete, bigger kid. John, great athlete, started with the drugs. His guy was jet roll told. I don't know how this information comes in my head. But we watched him. We called the ambulance many times for him to save his life from shooting junk. It was a needle in his arm. The fuck you doing? You know, he finally OD'd. He OD'd in his house. You know, a lot of guys were shooting junk after a while. They started out smoking pot, went to two-and-alls, second-alls, ups, downs, all this other nonsense. Next thing you know, they're shooting junk. First they're snorting it. Next thing you know, you watch them skin pop. I know how many fights I had with my friends, childhood friends, and I would get my ass kicked. I was small. Just tell them to stop doing that. I got two other brothers that were drug addicts. The whole neighborhood was like drug addicts at that time. LSD, you're doing from all kinds of depressants, and then you're dropping acid on the mescaline. I was, man. So, you know, when you grow up like that, you grow up hard. You grow up harder. You grow up more callous to this. So, yeah. Later on, it don't mean much. Like I said, and I grew up in an environment, there was guns all over my house. My father had a gun every day. He didn't have no license. He didn't have no license. There was machine guns in my house. I told you, my brother Jimmy got stabbed. They went down to the bar with Nicky Izzo, my father, my brother Rob. We went down there and lit up the whole bar. Got back in the car, came home. So.
You subscribe real hard to that because you say it a lot. You see, you even said it on Trevor. This independent thinking thing. You don't like the product of my environment theory at all. I know you don't.
Look, there are guys and there are people that become product of the environment. There's no way to see out. But we didn't come from somewhere that you couldn't see further than that. Again, I went to college. I still want to be a criminal. Did I play sports? Yeah, and my sports friends, like I said, but I had my criminal friends. And as I got older, instead of having two sets of friends, I wound up with three sets of friends because I would hang out in the clubs. You know, when Paul opens a club, it's 1976. How old am I? I'm 21. I'm a baby in that life. You can see some of the surveillance pictures. See, when I was playing softball, I was going to hang out in Paul's club. My hair the same way with that outfit on. There's surveillance pictures in front of Tommaso's and the veterans are friends with me dressed like that on my softball. And football season, football clothes. And you got all the guys with brims on, Nino, his hat, his glasses, Jimmy Brown, Paul walking in. I'm sitting there playing cards, gin, $5 a game.
That's my point. You are a product of your environment. You are exactly what your environment was.
But I didn't have to go there. I could have went and got a job. I could have got a job down the pier and just go that way and just be. It's what's in you at the time. You can make a decision, cognitive decision. I know other friends of mine that went on to do other stuff.
That's true, because I'm a big subscriber to product of environment. See, that's where that independent thinker, product of your environment. See, I think that's where me and you are polar opposites. I believe in like John Locke's blank slate theory that I think we're largely blank, and then we become what we are, and then so when you're thinking about something or making a decision on something for your life, it's that thinking is based on what is rooted in you, what's around you, what's in your head, what you have seen, and different things like that. Being around, like I would say, Jimmy Calandra's thesis that we just read, because his position is he was a victim. I take the position that forget about him, but I would say he is a victim. You would say he's not a victim. But let me tell you why I think he's a victim. And you tell me why I'm wrong, okay?